happens to your spiritual alignment when life knocks you off of balance? When you're feeling exhausted, disappointed, when you feel like you're carrying everybody else's emotional weight, it can be easy to fall back into patterns that you thought you had already outgrown. But your struggles don't necessarily mean that your vibration is low or that your magic has failed. And in tonight's episode, we're going to be talking about how to return back to yourself and to the person that you're becoming, even when life gets difficult. So merry meet, I'm Aislin. This is Ask Aislin. Tonight we are here with Spiritual Magnetism Part 2. This is staying aligned when life gets difficult. So welcome to those who are joining us live. Say hi in the chat. Let us know that you are here. Leave a heart or a thumbs up somewhere in the feed, and this just helps us get this video out to more people. So tonight we are here and we are going to be talking about part 2. This is actually a part 2 of our series on spiritual magnetism. But you do not have to have seen part 1 in order to follow today's episode or to benefit from it. And I will link that episode below this in case you would like to go back and learn more about how to align your energy and your actions and your magic to the life you desire. But tonight, what we're talking about is, what happens when things are not going our way? Does it mean that we're vibing low? Does it mean that we've attracted all those bad things to us? The short answer is no. The long answer is in this episode. So stick around and we're going to get into it now. So what does alignment look like through tough times? Well, first of all, I think it helps to just kind of briefly talk about what alignment looks like in the first place. So our alignment, when we talk about spiritual alignment, what we mean is kind of staying on course with the person that we want to be, with the life that we desire. We talked about last week about, this one idea, act in alignment with the person that you're becoming is one of the key foundations of spiritual magnetism. So you kind of think about the life that you would like and what kind of person has that life. What do they do? How much do they sleep? How much do they eat? How do they deal with their boundaries? What kind of magic do they practice? What kind of spiritual practice do they have? And then we do those things in order to align us with the energy of the path that we want. But that works really, really well when we're already kind of vibing high or feeling good. That tends to work the best. But what happens when we're going through tough times? That's where it gets hard, and it can feel like we're falling off of our path, and it can feel like we're falling out of alignment, and we may even, because we're such sensitive people, we may even start to beat ourselves up around it and about it, and that's never going to lead us anywhere positive. So I think that your spiritual alignment, the alignment that you have to the path that you really truly want, it's going to look different depending on the season that you're in. When you're in a season where things are flowing well, it will look one way, right? And it may look like taking bold action when you need to. It may look like exhibiting confidence and calmness, right? It may be about becoming more visible, especially if you're somebody who's trying to get your work out there, or you're looking for a promotion at your job or something like that, or you're trying to find new friends or a new love interest. It may be about trying something new. And projecting out your confidence and your enthusiasm. But when things get difficult, spiritual alignment actually looks quite a bit different. And if we're still expecting ourselves to do all those things, be confident, project yourself out there, take bold action, be visible. If we're expecting ourselves to be that way when we're going through really difficult times, well, I think the main problem is that we're not clear on what spiritual alignment looks like when things are difficult. So when things are difficult, your spiritual alignment may look like slowing down, sleeping more, protecting your energy, asking other people for help. I know that's a hard one for a lot of us. Returning to basic, simple spiritual practice and not doing the big elaborate rituals or spells that we're used to in those better times. Refusing to make an important decision before you've had the time to sleep on it or think about it, right? Or not making that decision when you're emotionally overwhelmed. That is what spiritual alignment looks like when things are getting difficult. So our emotional state is just naturally changing at all times. Sometimes we have a higher vibration than other times. Sometimes we're feeling good. Sometimes we're not feeling good. Feeling your fear and your grief and your frustration, feeling exhaustion, all of these things. This is not evidence that you have failed spiritually or you're off the path or something like that. Remember, you do not lose your spiritual progress just because things aren't going your way or because you are having a human response to a difficult situation. And I think that that is one of the most important things to remember probably in this episode. So I'm going to say it one more time. You do not lose your spiritual progress because you're having a human response to a difficult situation. So we're going to dive in now into 4 main keys of spiritual magnetism. And like I mentioned earlier, this is part 2 of a 2-part series. And we started with kind of the first 3 keys in the first episode. And so afterwards, if you want to watch that one, just look down in the comments and I'll have linked that one there. And we're going to kind of continue that conversation with 4 additional spiritual keys that help to kind of get you back into alignment, or at least to help you stay in alignment even when you're not feeling like your vibration is as high as you would like. But before I get into key 1, which is challenges do not necessarily mean that your vibration is low. Before I get into that, I'm just going to jump into the chat and say hi. So if you're here with us live, let us know. This just helps us feed this out to more people. The more people that interact with the live, it helps us get this to more people. So Mary Meet to Debbie, she says she is fighting a headache but she's here, and I am fighting a terrible headache as well. So it's kind of I guess very fitting that I'm doing this episode when I really feel quite awful right now. And hi to Jenny as well. But I think the important thing to remember, and we'll all learn that together as we go through this episode, is that even when we're not feeling well, there are things that we can still do to continue to align us to the path that we want. And it doesn't mean that we've done something necessarily wrong. And just so you know too, is that the feelings that you may feel about like I've caused this, or sometimes when we feel really, really awful, it can really spiral, right? And our thoughts can get really dark and very negative. And I think the important thing to remember is that it may just be our body's way of telling us that it's time to lie down. It's time not to really do a lot of work today. So I'm hoping that's what I'm going to try to do when this episode is over. And hopefully, Debbie, you can also take a little break too when this episode's over. And Mary Mead also to Andrea. So if you're with us live, say hi. Let us know you're here. And as we go through, let us know if you're where you are feeling energetically today. Also, we had a kind of a late start because of Mercury retrograde. We made it all the way through the retrograde without having any live problems until today, when Mercury retrograde is about to go direct in a couple days. All right, so let's get into key number 1. Your challenges do not necessarily mean that your vibration is low. Now, this is probably contradicts some systems that I have read. There are people who will say, oh, you're always attracting negative things. So if you're not feeling good, it's because you did something wrong. If you don't have the life that you want, it's because of you're the one attracting all of this. This was sort of my breaking away from the law of attraction crowd in my kind of mid to late 20s when I was studying it. Is I just simply don't buy it. I don't think that we are just always creating the bad situations. Do I believe that we have control over our situation to a greater degree than we believe? Yes, absolutely. But we are not always there just creating bad situations, right? And a setback that you have does not mean that you have automatically attracted that thing. Difficulty is not proof that a spell has failed, or that your spiritual path is failing, or that you're off the track. Pain is not a punishment for having had wrong thoughts. And I will admit, sometimes I fall into that negative thinking, that negative trap as well, being like, am I causing all of this? A difficult emotion is not the same as spiritual misalignment. And here's another thing to think about too, is we can't judge a person's spiritual path or spiritual growth by how easy or hard their life appears. And in fact, we really shouldn't be judging anybody's spiritual progress or path. We really should be focused more on our own. So if you ever find yourself kind of drifting into comparisons or looking at that person or he's not that spiritually aligned and yet good things happen to him, it's not the point. You didn't incarnate here to worry about other people's paths. You incarnated here to worry about your own. So we can't really know just by looking at a person, what kind of spiritual progress they're making or what their life is all about. Now, challenges can arise around us for a variety of reasons, and some of those challenges just simply come from external circumstances. So, other people will make choices, and we do not have control over other people's actions. We just cannot control what other people do. Now, we can control how we react next, but we can never control what they're actually going to do. Systems will affect us. There are big systems around us right now, many of them seeming to conspire against the majority of us. And those can be, we have some limited control on how we fight systems, but we're simply part of a system, and they will operate around us, right, and change the environment that we're in. Sometimes we just become tired, and sometimes we're just ill, right? Sometimes we're in the wrong place at the wrong time. That person's sick, and we pick it up too. And sometimes it just happens. Unexpected events will happen in our lives, and some of them really don't have much to do with us at all. It's just something operating around us. So not everything is generated by our own individual energy, and that's something really important to remember when you're going through tough times. Not everything was generated by your individual energy, and it's what I think the smartest thing we can do is kind of really get clear on, what can I control versus what I can't control. How have I contributed to the situation I'm in, as opposed to, what is being contributed by other people outside of me or the world itself or systems that I'm in, right? Now, some challenges that we have are meant to reveal an existing pattern. And this is where I think the gold of all of this comes from. So when we're going through hard times, it doesn't mean that every single hardship that we experience is meant to be a spiritual lesson, but they can reveal patterns. They can reveal how we react to certain things. They can reveal, like, you know, uh, well, for example, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. A situation could show us where we continue to overextend ourselves. So maybe where we struggle, and we find ourselves struggling, and it's meant to show us, well, you're always overextending yourself. You're always giving more, and that's why you're feeling the way that you are. Or it could be showing us those places where we repeatedly are avoiding conflict, because we're not speaking up for ourselves, or we're not making strong boundaries, or we're not telling somebody that they've hurt us, and we're just kind of rolling over. The situations may show up in order to test us, in order to help us to learn these lessons, to strengthen our ability to do what really is aligned with who we want to be. Sometimes the difficulties can show up in order to highlight where we are not listening to our own intuition. Especially if you are somebody who's at, a step in your spiritual path where you're working on intuition, where you are trying to expand your upper chakras. Our problems or these difficulties around us may be here to highlight those times where we ignore our intuition versus those times where we don't, right? Or it could be that our difficulties show up to highlight the places where we are accepting less than what we deserve or less than what we want. So the point is, some challenges are meant to help us grow. Not everyone, but some of them are meant to help us grow. Now, some challenges are part of our change. So I believe that, as we move through life, we are constantly changing. So there are people who come into this incarnation, and they're actually kind of on a path that isn't meant to grow. Some people choose easier incarnations where they just kind of like go with the status quo. They don't rock the boat. They're not looking for depth. I would venture to say that the vast majority of people who are following this channel are not in that category of people. You are here, you're attracted to things like this, to spirituality and witchcraft and healing arts and things like that, because you're not on that even keeled pathway. You're on that pathway of spiritual evolution. So that pathway of spiritual evolution is a pathway of change, because we kind of come into this world as one thing, one kind of person, and we exit this world as a different one. But again, it's important for us to remember that not every challenge you have is something that was spiritually planned to be part of your evolution or to teach you a lesson. And I think that the key here is being able to kind of tell the difference. We may not always know why something happened, and sometimes things just happen and we move through them and they don't really, and that's it, it's over, and we go on. And then there are other times when we go through these difficulties and it feels like they are repeating themselves, or they're testing something that perhaps we already tested at a lower level and now we're being tested again. So it's true that we can't always know why something happened, but what we can always decide is what relationship we would like to have with that situation now. It is important also for us to differentiate what happened with how we respond, right? So the event is what happened, and the response is what you do afterwards, that either is going to reinforce that thing that maybe you don't like, the difficult situation. If we respond in a certain way, it may reinforce it and it may keep it going, right? Or we can respond in a different way that seems more aligned with our growth. Now, the event may be out of our control, like I said, but over time, we do have some influence on how we respond to that. So we could seek support. That would be a very aligned action, right? We could set a boundary if that's what seems to be necessary at that time. We could change direction. We could return to a pattern that harms us. So these are like the negative ones, right? So like we could fall back into all of our bad habits because we have fallen on bad times. And I think that's another thing to like a really take home message here, is that my bad times don't need to mean that I fall back into my bad habits. So my bad times don't need to mean that I fall back into my bad habits. So let's think of an example. So let's say a person has experienced rejection, and that rejection could be in their love life or in their friendships or at a job that maybe they're trying to get a job, or they're looking for a promotion, or they've started a business and they're trying to put themselves out there, and they feel that they've experienced a rejection of some kind. So they may take that at first to mean that rejection means that the thing wasn't meant for them, or that it's proof that their vibration is low, and then they can let that spiral them down into a very deep and dark place. They may start telling themselves, oh, I shouldn't have tried, and so I'm not going to try that again, or nobody ever wants what I have to offer. This proves that I'm not capable. See, I thought I wasn't capable, and now this proves it. They may feel like, oh, I just want to make myself smaller and disappear and just pull away from people. So the key to spiritual magnetism is it's not making us deny that there's disappointment. You can feel sad when you feel rejected from a friend, from a lover, from a job, from a promotion. You can feel sad. You can feel disappointed. But what it asks us to do is kind of the next step, is what spiritual magnetism is all about, is to notice, how does that painful experience that we had, how does it begin rewriting the story of our future? So like, are we going to allow that to determine what we do next? Are we going to allow that to you know keep us from doing what we want. I mean, here's an example. When I first started my business in 2022, very beginning of 2022, the very first two things I sold, the first one person bought it. And then a second person bought it, and I'm pretty sure a friend of mine, told that person to buy it. Nevertheless, two people bought it, but I had put hours and hours and hours into this, and it felt like such a blow that I literally almost didn't go forward. If I hadn't gone forward, we would not be sitting here today even talking about this. The Shadow Seekers membership would not exist. Many things would not exist. My online coven would not exist, all these things. In the second offering that I made, literally not a single person signed up. And I did. I went through very dark places and times. I remember that really it's a feeling I don't hope to return to, though I may at some point, to test to see how I've grown. But I felt so rejected, and it's like almost like the universe was saying I wasn't meant to do this. And I just like kind of listened to the universe. And the universe said, well, it's just because you're offering the wrong kinds of things. Get in alignment with what you're really supposed to be offering. And that's when Shadow Seekers was born. So I say this to you. There's nothing special and magical about what I did. It was just me, noticing that what I was trying to offer really wasn't aligned with the pathway that I was headed on, and listening to my intuition and listening to my guides and that soft voice inside, and not letting that all undo me. Instead, allowing that to, to get me back on the right track, get me on the path that I was supposed to be on, and then that's when everything changed for me. So if you can think about that, like in your own life, I mean, can you think of a challenge that has asked you recently to feel something, or to learn something, or to change something, or even a lesson that's asked you to just take out the time to recover? Because what I will tell you is that when I went through all of that, and I can even remember myself just lying in the dark bedroom after not sleeping for like 2 days building a website and just being like, I can't go on. And really what the energy asked me to do was to give myself some time to recover. I didn't move immediately. I didn't pivot immediately into what I eventually did. Shadow Seeker took several months as the idea for Shadow Seekers was formulated. But so I needed some time to recover from all of that. And then it asked me to kind of like listen to my voice inside of me, listen to my higher self, listen to my guides, and then from there start to make the changes that I needed to. So share in the chat if you feel called to. Is there a challenge that you have had recently, or even one of like mine was from 4 years ago, one that you can remember where it asks you to kind of learn something, to feel something, or to change something in your life. So share, let us know in the chat, and then we're going to go on to key number 2, which is prevent difficult times for pulling you back into the bad habits. That is a hard one for many of us, but it's very important, because when we get pulled into the bad habits, that's where we start to go into the low vibration. It's not the thing itself that happened that causes the low vibration. It's what we do afterwards. Do we choose to like vibrate at a higher level, or do we choose to vibrate at the lower level? So go ahead and share in the chat. I'm just going to jump over to the chat real quick before I go, but I can't seem to find the chat. Okay. There we go. I'm back to the chat. So, yeah, Debbie said, good idea for both of us. For those who missed it, Debbie and I both have a terrible headache right now, and so we're both going to rest when this episode is over. Aislin said, I am learning to pause, stop, and look at the overall picture. Yeah, and that is a great lesson, because probably in the past that was difficult for you, right? And you might have like plowed forward into making choices that maybe were not always the ones that you wanted to. Taliesin said, hard for me due to my being very opinionated. Yeah. About I'm not sure what you were referring to, but maybe I'm not sure. but but it can be. But even when we are very opinionated, that is okay. It can just be part of the path that we're on. Let's see. Debbie said, I do give, and it burns me or burns me up. She said, I hate that I'm dependable. So I think the thing to me, is dependability is such a beautiful gift and such a beautiful strength that you have. So many of us, like, we're empathic people, we're giving people. We tend to overgive, and there are people in our lives who will take advantage of it, and they will flock to us. And many of you guys who are, givers, sensitive people too, you probably have like narcissistic people also who kind of come into your world because of the way that you are. Your dependability doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just about creating the boundaries. Like, I can be dependable only when I'm also dependable to myself. So, like, put yourself first, your energy first. Depend on yourself, right? Or even think about, like, your inner child, for example, who depends on you. Fill her or him or them up, and then you know you will and set your better boundaries too, because people who know you're dependable, they will overstep those boundaries. So it can be very important, to get the strong boundaries. Debbie said, I've been able to keep up with my vitamins and nutrition. She said, I really wanted to go buy alcohol, but I knew that would be a mistake. Yeah, and that was exactly what we're about to talk about, is falling back into bad habits. So alcohol is not necessarily a bad thing. People drink just fine. Some people drink just fine, but for other people, that's the bad habit that sends them down into that bad spiral. Let's see. Andrea said, really working on how I respond, but also trying not to be hard on myself, or the response isn't what it should be in my mind. And that's true too. Remember, it is also important for us to remember it's always a work in progress. Sometimes people, like, I think that most people get this on a deeper level, but that part of us that lives in the world that wants immediate gratification or wants answers quickly. The internet has taught us, and now AI has accelerated this, that the answers are always at your fingertips. But when it comes to spiritual growth, it's really the exact opposite. Spiritual growth takes time. And so it is important for us, we can have responses that are bad, that we're not happy about or proud about, or that we feel aren't aligned with who we want to be. And it's, to me, rather than getting upset about it, it's like, take a step back and just evaluate it. I like to do something at the end of every day, which is called, I had a spiritual teacher who called it cleaning your plate. And it's where you just sort of, like, at the end of the day, with a very kind of non-judgmental as you can, just sort of evaluate how things went, like what things went well that day and what things were not as aligned as you would like them to be. And it's not about beating yourself up. There actually, you have to try very hard to resist the urge to judge those things. But if we can pull them out and be like, when this happened, here's the response that I had. I'm not super keen on it. Rather than me judging about it, I'm going to file that away as something that I'll work on tomorrow or next week, or it's just on my list of, the spiritual goals that I have. And I think that has really helped me a lot. And then just keeping in mind that the shifts and changes that we want to make them in small steps, not like huge jumps at one time. Not trying to do everything all at once. But I definitely get it with being hard on ourselves for the response. But just see if you can allow yourself to let go of a little bit of that judgment. Okay, and Merry Meet to Felicia, who is joining us. Merry Meet. Okay, I'm gonna jump back to key two, so I don't get too off and have the episode go super long. So let us go on. Jenny, before I go, there are a couple more comments coming in at the end. Jenny said, I'm learning to be in the moment, not the past or the future. And that is the best place to be. In our Shadow Seekers group, that's what we've been talking about this month. at the end, for those who are not part of Shadow Seekers, we'll talk a little bit about that at the end. But we've been talking about how our grounding only takes place in the present moment. It doesn't take, if you're in the future or you're in the past, you're not grounded. It's simply not possible to be fully grounded in those two spaces. So learning to live in the moment is one of the most important things that we could ever do in our spiritual path. And Andrea said she likes the cleaning the plate. Yeah, it's just I like lie in bed and just for a minute I just think about, what went well, what didn't go so well. What my teacher also said is that you can like actually visualize, like if there's something that happened that you didn't like, you can actually visualize it happening in a different way. And it doesn't mean that it's obviously not changing it in the physical, but it does change it in your energetic body. And then I think it gives you more space to, to make the necessary changes in the future that you want, rather than beating ourselves up about it or judging or something like that. Okay, so let us go back to, okay, now we're on to the second key. Okay, so let's go talk about the second key. So the second key is prevent the difficult times from pulling you back into bad habits. So it's for everybody, this is going to look different. So just like I talked about, not everybody has a problem with alcohol. Not everybody has a problem with cigarettes. Not everybody has a problem with staying late or not putting up boundaries or overeating or eating bad food. So it's really going to be unique to you. It's thinking about what are the habits that you have had in your life that are not healthy. They may be ones that you have moved past, thankfully, right? Or it could even be ones that you're kind of struggling with and still fighting with now. These are the ones that are often very automatic. So sometimes for people, it can be isolating. For people, it can be doom scrolling. And we talked a lot about that in Shadow Seekers and in some of these episodes recently. That's a hard one. That's a habit that I will sometimes fall into. And I've tried to keep myself from doing it and have had quite a bit of success. But what I've noticed is because I'm not doing that, when things get really hard, I go to just looking up stories on the internet that are not as positive as I would like for the vibration I want. So just kind of think, do we immerse ourselves in kind of negative stories when we're feeling bad? Overeating or undereating or skipping meals, restriction, right? Overspending. Some people go out and buy a lot when they're not doing well. Abandoning our spiritual practices, that could happen to some of us. Avoiding our responsibilities. Reaching out to a person who's hurt us in the past. So sometimes we will get attracted back to very negative people because we are in a negative state because of what's going on for us. Saying yes to everything because we just want to avoid conflict. That could be something we fall into when we're not doing well. Or deciding that one setback means that nothing is working. So that's kind of the all or nothing thinking. So kind of think about it for you, or I guess that doesn't even talk about drinking, smoking, all the various things that we could do that are not as aligned with the energy that we want. So I think what's important for us is to really identify what is your default. For me, a long time ago, it was smoking, but I've gone so beyond that that's not what happens to me. It tends to be more this doom scrolling or reading really negative stories. So think about it for you. What is the thing that you do when you're stressed out and when you're kind of falling into bad habits? What is the thing that you do? What's the old pattern that returns? And remember, this is not about shaming ourselves about it. It's just but we can't work on something if we don't name it, right? If we don't bring it out into the light first. And then what you want to do is we want to interrupt the all or nothing response. So even if you fell back into bad habits, don't let that really undo you. Tomorrow's always another day, and you can move yourself onto the better pathway. As an example with kind of like spiritual practice. So people will, this is a big one, people will fall out of spiritual practice when they're going through tough times. And then they believe that if they can't do the complete practice or a practice that's big enough, then there's not any point in doing anything at all. This is something that happens to me as well. Um, you don't have to have a 25-minute meditation. You can do a 2-minute meditation. You can just close your eyes and drop roots down from your body, drop roots down from the corners of your room and ground the space around you. And that right there is a spiritual practice. So I think, to me, when you are going through a hard time and you notice yourself, like let's use my example, for example, notice myself doom scrolling and then I put the phone down and then I'm doing work. And then I think I told the shadow seekers this one day, I started like, I don't know, reading about Mount Everest. And then I started reading about this time in I guess it was the 90s when more people died on Mount Everest than ever before. And I spent an hour reading this very dark and bad story. So instead of that, if we can pull ourselves out of whatever that is, whether it's smoking, drinking, overspending, overeating, not doing our self-care practices, pull ourselves out of it and light a candle. Pull ourselves out of it and take 3 intentional breaths and maybe have a go-to positive mantra that you use. Um, you know, take a moment and tidy up a corner of your house to kind of move the energy. Write one thought in your journal. It doesn't have to be this huge long page. Just write a sentence of how you feel right now and what's a step that you can take to move you past the way that you're feeling. Step outside for two minutes and just take some breath or feel the sun on the back of your neck or something like that. So I encourage you to create what I call a minimum practice, which is it's the minimum thing that you will do when things are getting hard or you feel like you're falling out of your spiritual practice. What is the one thing that you could do? What is the smallest version of your spiritual practice that still helps you remember who you want to be, who you're becoming, right? The aligned goals that you have. What is that one small thing? I suggest something as simple as a candle, but for everybody that's going to be different. But have the minimum practice and just really try to move into that minimum practice every time that you feel like you're falling off of the path. During hard times, it may not be to make progress. Your minimum practice is usually not about making progress. Though over time, your minimum practice does help you make progress because it helps you stay connected and not pulled off. Again, going back to that thought, that thing I said earlier, my bad times don't have to mean that I fall back into my bad habits, right? The goal is to stop kind of the temporary pain that you are having right now from making permanent decisions for you or kind of influencing, the direction of where your life goes next. Okay, so let's get back into, let's go into key 2. I'm watching the time here, but before I do, I just wanted to jump back into the chat. I don't know, I'm having trouble seeing it today. There it is. Okay. Okay, so Debbie said, what is root dropping? And Taliesin has said, yeah, so it's you just envision the roots coming down from you into the earth. And then what you can do is you can offload negative energy that you have. So you can just imagine it kind of like rolling off your shoulders, down through your body, down through your feet, and down into the earth. And then you can draw energy back up into your body with drawing that energy up into the earth and replenishing the negative energy that you've dropped down. It doesn't necessarily mean that we're like getting rid of all of our negative energy, but it can be very helpful. And one of the things that we've been talking about in Shadow Seekers is not only doing that for yourself, not only dropping the roots from your body, but also trying to anchor the room that you're in by dropping roots down from the 4 corners of the room and really ground your space. Because if you're somebody who has like a lot of like sensitivity to energy, It can help you if the room is also grounded around you. Andrea says she's noticed that when she's more creative, she does less shopping and scrolling. Absolutely. You know, the more aligned we feel, the more we're not, we're not doing those things that we feel are a little bit more negative. Taliesin's been doing a lot of root dropping, and he said it does help big time. Yeah, it can be surprising sometimes how small that needs to be. That practice really only needs to. It can take like 1 minute, literally. Close your eyes, and if there's a lot of people around you, what I suggest people do is go into the bathroom, and just take the time alone, and just drop the roots down from your body, and then drop them down from the four corners of the room. And then when you come out a minute later, things can really shift really quickly when you do a practice like that regularly. Um, okay. People are talking about shopping. Shopping's a big one for people. Yeah. And then under eating, and yeah, and I'm like Debbie too. Like when things are bad for me, it's going to be under eating or skipping a meal, especially breakfast. So just kind of knowing what those things are for us, that's the key to it. It's not the same for everybody, and just knowing what it is for us. And then when we start to see ourselves, when I start to scroll, who died on Mount Everest, or not even scroll, I'm not even doom scroll. I'm just reading on the internet. When I start to look up who died on Mount Everest, then I know things are not not in alignment, right? And so then that's going to be my key to come out and drop my roots, or light a candle, or sit for 2 minutes, or go outside and breathe some fresh air. So each of you figure out what that is going to be for you. What's the sign that you're kind of coming unaligned, and then have your minimum practice that you will return to. Okay, let's go to key number 3, and just watching the time here. So key number 3 is know when to act and when to replenish your energy. So this is going to be hard for some of us. The doers and the givers are going to continue to be inclined to do and give even when they're going through some tough times. So I'm feeling really bad right now. But this is a scheduled live, so I'll come on here. But this would probably be a good night for me to not do as much, because my body, my headache, my eyes are hurting. Everything's just kind of telling me it's time to rest. It's not really time to act and do more. But sometimes there's this inclination, even when we feel bad, to do more. It's like we're trying to make up for it, or to justify something or rationalize something, right? So when you need rest, we need rest, and this is the time to avoid doing a lot of action. So signs that your action may be needed. So let's talk about, well, how do we know the difference? Sometimes it's time to take action, and sometimes it's time to rest. So how do we tell the difference? So action will be appropriate when the same issue keeps returning because it has not been addressed. So if you start to see yourself like in all these patterns, right, or this pattern, and it keeps repeating, it could be time to take action. And doesn't mean that you can't kind of like rest and sleep on it or something like that. But repeated patterns that you become cognizant of, they tend to be there so that you can take an action to address it. And even if that action is a very small action, like just setting one boundary, it doesn't have to change you don't have to change your whole life and uproot everything. It's just, try to see, I keep falling into the same pattern. So what is one action I can take to get me kind of moving in a different direction? If you have a conversation or a boundary that you've been delaying repeatedly, that can indicate it's time to take an action, right? Sometimes our fear is disguised as waiting for the right time. Sometimes that's a tricky one. So there are right times, or there are more energetically aligned times for certain things. But it's really good to get clear on, what are my fears and how are they contributing to me kind of waiting to do something. That's where your shadow work can really help you to dig into those fears, figure out where they're coming from, and figure out how much they're contributing to you kind of feeling stuck. sometimes there is a next step, like you know it, like your higher self or your guides, they repeatedly kind of told you, or it's just this gut feeling that this is the next step to take, but your discomfort prevents you from moving forward. That's usually a sign that it's time to try to see if I can get past the discomfort and just take the step, because something inside of me is telling me that the step needs to happen, right? Um, Now, what about times to, how do we know when it's time to like replenish ourselves or rest or sort of go inward? Well, if you're in a space where even the smallest of decisions, like deciding what to eat for dinner, um, if even the smallest decisions feel overwhelming, you're probably in a space where you need some rest. You need to replenish yourself before you move forward and do some actions. If your body is really tense, if you're exhausted, if you're unable to settle down, that's usually a time when it's time to replenish yourself. Last night I could not sleep like at all. It was very unusual. This is like some of the worst it's been for me in a very long time. Terrible insomnia. I even kind of looked up like energetically what's going on that could be contributing to it. I think I'm just overwhelmed and need to replenish myself. But if your body's feeling really tense, that's usually a time that it's time for you to like try to replenish yourself and maybe not take an action. If every problem feels equally urgent, and you can't really figure out what to do next, that's also a good time to take some time out to replenish yourself. If you're feeling numb, that can also be a good time to take some time out to replenish yourself. Um, if you also feel like you are continually giving, 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 but you're never taking the time to restore your own energy, then that's going to be another time it's an indication that it's time to replenish yourself and rest. So what does replenishment mean? Well, it just like our bad habits and those things, those like red flags that tell us we're really kind of like need to take a pause or something like that. Everybody should kind of have their go-to replenishment and what it means for you. So sometimes it can be sleep, sometimes it can be eating nourishing food. Sometimes it can be just taking some time out from the noise or cleansing, doing like a cleansing practice, doing some grounding, like we were talking about, dropping the grounding cords or tree roots. Sometimes it could be playing some music, taking time out in nature, just doing something creative like coloring even, or doing something for your inner child. So I think it's important for you to like make a list of things that are going to be your go-to practices when you notice that you're overwhelmed and you need to step back. What are you going to do? And have a list of 3 or 4 things that you can do, and then move forward and do one of those things. So think about, think about where you are right now. Like, are you feeling like your energy is in the place where you want it to be, or are you experiencing some difficulties in your life right now? And then you're going to ask yourself, if I am experiencing some difficulties in my life or in my energy, then you're going to ask yourself, is it time for me to take an action? Or is it time for me to take some me time and to replenish my energy before I take that action? Because if I don't take that important step, I may take an action that isn't as aligned as I think it is. Maybe it feels aligned in the moment, and then later I realize that it is not. But if I take that time out to really replenish my energy, then my action is going to be much more likely to be aligned, with the person that I'm becoming and the life that I want. Now, the other thing that's going to be important to also understand is that we want to be able to prevent ourselves from feeling spiritual guilt. So remember, a lot of us are givers, doers, spiritually sensitive people. Maybe you call yourself an empath, you're a healer, different things like that. And it can feel sometimes like replenishing your energy is a cop out, or it's stepping away from your spiritual path. And it's really important that you shift your mindset around that. Your rest can be a spell. Rest is magic. Sleep is magic. I mean, imagine the things that happen in your body when you allow it to rest. So kind of think about your replenishment practices as being spells themselves. So maybe you don't have the energy for the big elaborate ritual or the action or whatever it is. You can still do spells and magic. And just for you right now, it may be sleeping, taking some time out for yourself, spending some time doing some grounding practices. And then, of course, too, it's important to keep in mind that sometimes the energy that you are feeling or the emotions that you are feeling are not necessarily yours. And that to me feels like a whole other episode, which we will do in the future, how to tell how to separate your energy from other people's energy. So we're going to turn that into a full other episode because I have a whole huge thing of notes here that I wrote, and we're already kind of out of time. So rather than go really fast through this part, let's turn that into its own episode. But so just to highlight what it's going to be about is if you find that your mood changes sharply around a certain person, it could be that you're picking up some of that person's energy. Or if you feel responsible for another person's emotional state, again, it could be that you're carrying that person's energy. Probably there's a good chance that you, as a sensitive person, energetically sensitive person, it's a very good chance that you are carrying somebody else's energy. And there's absolutely ways that we can learn how to differentiate their energy from our energy. There's a lot of practices that we can do as well. So we have that to look forward to in a future episode. But let us talk about, before we end here, I just wanted to kind of pause and let's do like an alignment check-in. So you can use this anytime when you're kind of wondering, like, where am I with my energy? So really pause for the moment and you're going to ask yourself, what is happening right now? And that's just literally what's happening in front of you in your interactions with this person, or in your life or in your job. What is the issue? What's the difficulty that's going on right now? And what am I feeling or I'm carrying? So that helps you to link that into an emotion. So what is kind of the emotion that I am carrying that is related to this thing that's happening outside of me? So it's like, what's the thing? What's the situation? And then what's the energy or the emotion that I'm carrying in response to it? And then you're going to ask yourself, does it belong to me? And that future episode is going to help us a little bit more to understand that part. But you can sometimes, you'll know, like there'll be a voice inside of you that's like, well, some of it's yours, but a lot of it's not. So, does that feeling belong to me? And then what is going to be the next aligned choice that you could make? Do you need to take an action right now? Do you feel capable of taking an action right now? Or instead, do you need some rest? Or do you need to set a boundary? Do you need to reach out for support? So just kind of ask yourself, what is the next aligned choice that I could take? So what is happening now? What is my emotions or my energy in response to it? Is it all mine? And then what is the next aligned step that I could take? So let's say a person has received some disappointing news. So they received the news, right? So that's what's happening. What are they feeling? Well, they could feel a variety of emotions, but in this case, let's say the person decides that they're feeling fear and they're also feeling really discouraged. So maybe like it was disappointing news about a job that they were hoping for, and they're feeling fear because they're not sure where their money's going to come in the future, and they're feeling discouraged. So what part of this is not them is it could be another person's judgment about what they should do next. So there can be, like, when you have disappointments in your life, there can be other people who are either like consciously or unconsciously, it feels like they have judgments around it, like this is what you should do, this is what you should not do. And that other person's judgment, the other person's emotions and feelings, that's not your stuff. So that's how we separate, their stuff from our stuff, right? So what is the next aligned choice that this person could make after their disappointing news? Well, they may decide that tonight they just need the chance to rest and recover from it, and then they can review their options tomorrow. And sometimes just giving yourself the permission to be like, I'm not going to make a decision tonight or do anything tonight. Tonight I'm choosing rest. And then tomorrow I can I can review those options. And then what you really need to do, though, is really differentiate or draw that line between today and tomorrow, tonight, and not let tomorrow and your worries about tomorrow kind of impinge on the rest that you need tonight. So alignment during hard times isn't forcing yourself back into a good mood or just think positively. It's never about that. It's just about choosing a response that doesn't abandon the person you're trying to become or the aligned path that you're on. So just to summarize before we close, your challenges are not proof that you have low vibration. And it's important for us to keep in mind that hard times will often activate familiar patterns. So if you find yourself kind of falling into those old familiar patterns, that's natural and it's common and it's normal. Being able to recognize it is the first step, and then it allows you to make the choice later, like, will I do that next time? It also allows you to kind of pull yourself out of that. Your alignment may require you to take an action. It may require you to do some rest and replenishment, or it may require you to set up a boundary. Not every single energy that we feel automatically belongs to us. And really the overarching goal of all of this is to choose what is going to be your next aligned response. So recognizing what's happening is obviously the first step that we want to take. But if we want to change long-term or long-standing patterns, if we want to rebuild up our depleted energy, or we want to learn to maintain boundaries or set up good boundaries and then maintain them, it can sometimes take more than just one insight or just like more than one day of working on this. You can take practice and support in a place where you can work with it and work around what is happening in your life. So that's kind of the deeper work. It's really what Shadow Seekers is all about. We have created this group where people can kind of come together in a family kind of setting. You can get support from the other members of the group. These are all people not necessarily working on the same things as you, but they're all working on kind of their aligned paths, and you get support from me, and we have workshops and rituals and different things like that. So right now we are restructuring how we're enrolling people. There's going to be a big unveiling coming hopefully within the next month or two. But if you're watching this episode and you're like, I would like some support before that, we would never turn anybody away. So just reach out to me. I can send you the link. You can read a little bit more about Shadow Seekers, see if it sounds like a good fit. But it's a great family of people, and all kind of working for their spiritual evolution and the betterment of themselves. All right, so remember, spiritual growth does not mean that we are reaching a point where nothing difficult ever happens. That is not the goal of our spiritual growth. Difficult things are still going to happen. Remember, systems go on around us. People are in our lives who bring forward their own problems and oftentimes their own unhealed energy. So it's not like difficult things are never going to happen to us. But when we are, growing spiritually, what it does mean is that we become more able to recognize what's happening around us, return back to ourselves, and then choose how we want to move forward. So the next time that life becomes difficult for you, ask yourself, what would help me stay connected to the person that I am becoming? So I hope that helps, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Now we're just going to go to the Q&A really quick. It doesn't have to be about what we talked about today. I can answer any questions about witchcraft, shadow work, or energy work, or if there's something you want to ask about today's episode, or anything you want to share. So the chat is open now. So let's see here. Debbie said, I have to keep trying to find help for my disabled spouse. It's brutal. Yeah, it's some problems that we have feel bigger and feel like they carry more weight than others. And caretaking for someone who is disabled is hard, and equally hard, and actually I should say doubly hard when we're already somebody who gives so much, So I think one of the things I do think that finding some help for them is the action to take. But also really think about how you fill yourself up, and do you have the support network that you need? Finding support is going to be key for somebody who, like, it's not really possible to not care for your spouse, right? So you need extra support and you need extra help, and and don't be afraid to reach out to people and ask for help. Oh, and Debbie said, "Hi, Kitty." I think baby Corey. she wandered through here a little bit earlier. Um, so, does anybody have any questions? Well, I'm kind of waiting for that. Let me go and tell you what's coming up. Okay, so if you are in the Los Angeles area, if you are local to Los Angeles, our in-person coven, Coven of Midnight's Flame, is having our Lunaza ritual this Saturday night, 7:25, at the Crooked Path Occult Apothecary in Burbank, California. And we'd love to join for you to join us if you are local. This is not the traditional Lunaza ritual that we often have. This ritual is going to look deeper at some of the deeper systemic things that are happening, people and systems that hoard wealth and take away from people, and kind of the way that these systems are set up in a broken way. So we're going to be kind of tackling that during this ritual, and then we're also going to be looking at our own kind of personal blockages to prosperity. And it's really going to be a very cool ritual. Like I said, it's very different than the ones we've done in the past. But if you are local to LA, I'll drop a link in the chat if you'd like to read more about the ritual and maybe even join us for that. You can get your ticket online, or you can also buy it if you know where the Crooked Path is in Burbank, you can also buy it there in person. What's coming up next week? So our episode next week is on 7/28, 1 week from tonight. I'll be doing an episode on Lunaza. That will be our annual Lunaza episode. We'll talk all about what the holiday means and different ways that people can celebrate. And then the following week on 8/4, we will have an episode on the Lionsgate portal. I'm going to do kind of a forecast on what this particular Lionsgate portal is forecasting for us. So watch for those. Those are the next two episodes coming. On 8/11, I've decided I need to replenish my energy, so I'm taking that week off. We'll have no episode. But then on 8/18, I'll be back with an episode on the Triple Goddess. And then for those who would like to celebrate Lunaza and Lionsgate Portal with us and are not local to the Los Angeles area, on 8/8, that is a Saturday, I believe, Saturday, 8/8, we're going to be having our online Lunaza Lionsgate Prosperity Ritual. I think that we're working with Ganesha and Lakshmi this year, which we have not worked with in a couple of years. So it's going to be a great ritual where you can kind of define what prosperity means to you, and then we're going to be working on aligning our energy to that and drawing in that prosperity. So that there will be more information coming out about that as we get closer. We're still several weeks away. So just that ritual, as always, is open to our Shadow Seekers members and our online coven. And but if you are not a member of either of those groups, you can also join us, and there will be a place where you can make a donation and get a ticket for that as well. So just watch for as more information comes out about that. All right, so I am going to sign off for the night, but as always, it is great to spend Tuesday night with you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your night. It is first quarter right now, so first quarter moon, so this is a good time to kind of do some balancing of your energy. Ask yourself, do I need rest? Or do I need to do spiritual practice? Don't push yourself too hard. I think first quarter just asks us to really check in with ourselves and see where our energy balances or imbalances are right now, and then act accordingly. All right, until next time, blessed be.